It's 10 a.m. here in Lagos. Good morning and welcome to Business Morning. I'm Chimeze Obiwagu.
And I'm Ladi Williams. Thank you for joining us. Let's take a look at what's happening in the oil market. Oil prices fell for a third day in early trade today on mounting concerns that increasing spread of Delta variant of the coronavirus in top consuming countries will cut fuel demand. Brent crude oil futures slid 22 cents to $72.19 a barrel. U.S. West Texas Intermediate crude fell at 33 cents to $70.23 a barrel. Both futures fell on Tuesday to their lowest since July 21st before regaining some ground by the close. United States and China, the world's two biggest oil consumers, are grappling with rapidly spreading outbreaks of the highly contagious Delta variant that analysts fear will limit fuel demand at a time when it traditionally rises in both countries.
And back here, the Nigerian Postal Service has unveiled a 15-naira revenue stamp for denoting transactions in the country. Over 25 million units of the stamps have been printed for distribution, according to the service of the Minister of Communication and Digital Economy, Dr. Issa Pantami, who unveiled the stamp in Abuja, says it is part of efforts to boost Nigeria's revenue generation. Let's take a listen.
Postal Services.
The Minister of Communication and Digital Economy, alongside guests, unveiling the new 15-naira revenue stamp. It's the first stamp to be printed after President Muhammadu Buhari signed the amended Finance Act 2020 into law in December 2020. Mr. Ali Pantami says the stamp will be used to authenticate all lawful transactions as it discloses plans by the federal government to reform NIPOST.
We also have a plan of NIPOST Property and Development Company. This is a company that will bring together all the properties of NIPOST, develop them, and make sure that government is generating revenue from them.
The bill to repeal the Nigerian Postal Service Act and reenact the Nigerian Postal Commission as passed third reading of both chambers.
The Southwest Governors Forum has called for the removal of the federal government's exclusive control of stamp duty collection. But the Minister of Communication and Digital Economy, who speaks to journalists after the event, believes the agitation no longer suffices.
Now it has become a law. National Assembly has already approved. Mr. President has assented to it in Finance Act 2020.
Meanwhile, the Postmaster General of the Federation believes the current stamp charges need to be reviewed.
This same 15 naira that we charge, postal operators who are private operators charge 2,000 naira, 1,500 naira. So it is no doubt it is not sustainable at 15 naira.
The stamp will attract revenue, but you should know that NIPOST stamp is printed. It's minted. It's not as if it's just like we collect just the money. No, we use the money also in printing the stamp, and our money goes to the Federation account just like any TSA, just like any other agency.
Stamps have been used in Nigeria since 1874, when Nigeria pioneered the production of stamps with the issuance of what was then known as the Lagos stamps. The federal government believes that the 15-naira denomination revenue stamp would add value to the economy. What Nigerians are waiting to see is how funds realized from the sales of the stamp will be utilized. Empress Simon, Channels Television News.
And ipnx, one of Nigeria's leading information and communications technology companies, has announced the launch of FOS Extreme 1000, a new broadband service offering 1 gigabyte per second speed to residential users. And this makes it the first player in the Nigerian market to offer such high speed. Now, remarks the divisional CEO, ipnx Retail, Kene NS, says Nigerians deserve the fastest internet possible so they can fully benefit from all that the internet has to offer. The new product is 50 times faster than the average broadband connection speed in Nigeria. Do take a listen.
Living in a changing world where more and more of daily life and activities have significantly moved online, study, work, entertainment, and more, also means that Nigeria cannot be left out of the new normal. And ipnx, remember them? They have something new up their sleeves that is set to guarantee convenience and satisfaction. Riding on the back of over 2 decades as one of Nigeria's leading information and communications technology company, ipnx is introducing Extreme 1000, a new broadband service offering 1 gigabit per second speed to residential users, becoming the first player in Nigeria's market to offer such high internet speed.
Imagine that you buy your data plan, you buy 1 Mbps, which is what we're used to, or 2 Mbps. That's typically what you get on your mobile data, right? Now, move that 1 Mbps to 1 times 1,000. So you're getting speed that is 1,000 times faster than what you currently get at 1 Mbps.
Wondering how this has been achieved and can be sustained, management says they have got it covered by making the right investments in infrastructural backbone.
The infrastructure that we use today, we didn't build today. We've been in the business of fiber to the home since 2012, and we were the first to provide fiber to the home services to customers in Nigeria. And from 2012, we have consistently expanded on this infrastructure.
Added to this service is the speed upgrade for its full range of residential unlimited broadband packages, offering customers more at the same price.
We have 2 means of getting activated. You could sign up as a new subscriber and your service will be activated. We also have the opportunity, we're extending this to our existing customers where they will be afforded a chance. They can actually upgrade from whatever plan they are using to the new plan.
With a strong foothold in cities like Lagos, Abuja, Port Harcourt, and Ibadan, ipnx says more cities will be connected to its high-speed broadband internet and voice services backed by its fiber optic technology, which has won the company lots of accolades and awards.
And the Global Education Summit ended in the United Kingdom last week, with world leaders making 5-year pledges to support global partnership for education's work and help transform education systems in up to 90 countries and territories. Financing GPE 2021-2025 was a key moment for the global community to come together and support quality education for all children. At the summit, President Muhammadu Buhari pledged to increase the budget for the education sector by as much as 50% over the next 2 years and up to 100% by 2025 beyond the 20% global benchmark. This brings to mind the importance of investment in education for sustainable development. To have this conversation with us is Chair in Business and Sustainable Development at the University of Edinburgh, Professor Kenneth Amechi. Thank you very much, Professor Amechi, for joining us on the program. Good morning.
Good morning, and thank you for having me.
So, Sustainable Development Goal 4 is on education and aims to ensure inclusive and equitable quality education and promote lifelong learning opportunities for all. How close are we to this education goal, and what is the link between education and sustainable development?
I think to answer the question, we may want to go back to the meaning of sustainable development itself, because sustainability has become a word that is bandied around these days. So we talk about sustainable economy, sustainable agriculture, sustainable finance, and so on and so forth. But sustainability in this case should be understood in the context of sustainable development, which means how we meet our needs today without necessarily compromising the ability of future generations to meet their own needs. So if you put it in that context, so it's broad and will incorporate both social, economic, and environmental issues. But most of the time these days is largely seen and framed as an environmental issue, especially by the global north. So I thought it would be nice to bring back the broad definition of sustainable development to enable us to situate education in it. So if the question is, to what extent can education contribute to the sustainable development goals or sustainable development in general, I would then argue that it is all about how education as culture building can help us grapple with the challenges of today and prepare us for tomorrow.
All right, Prof. President Buhari at the summit promised to increase, budgetary allocation to education by 50% over the next 2 years. How feasible is this, and what impact will it make?
The feasibility is something beyond me because I don't know how much money Nigeria has at the moment. So if you say 50%, what does 50% mean in the true sense of it? But I would say investment in human capital is something that shouldn't be taken for granted. In some countries, they have up to 5% of their GDP overall invested in education. So, and throwing money at education, again, it might not necessarily be the entire problem. But we also need to ensure that the money trickles down and the money also is able to solve the basic challenges of education in the country. And this will cut across education across different levels from kindergarten to university. So I hope that the thinking behind the money would also be as robust as the problem presents.
Now, you talked about investing in human capital development. Now, we know that education, of course, is critical to the development of human capital, just as you did mention. Now, how would you assess the quality of human capital here in Nigeria? And as a country, are we really investing enough in human capital development? We brag in the world today that Africa is a very young continent, and that's true. But the problem is that we may not be investing as much in education, or we may not be meeting the needs of education at the same pace we would like it to help us become a global power in the near future. So in that regard, I'm very skeptical about the investment in education in Nigeria and indeed in Africa. And if you look at the Nigerian context, yes, the government might be doing as much as they can, but one gets the impression that education is hardly a priority. And that for me is a problem. If you think also how the education sector in particular, the sort of skills we are attracting, because if you can't give what you don't have, really. So if education is not able to attract good teachers, good personnel, then it tells me that we are not doing much and we are not prioritizing it. There are some sectors in Nigeria that are attracting and sucking human capital, and they provide an enabling environment that would encourage labor to flow into them. But education, I'm afraid, is not one of them.
All right, but how can the private sector contribute to education as a sustainable development priority in Nigeria?
A very interesting question. And the private sector can contribute in many ways. The private sector can complement what the government is doing by becoming a provider of education. And you may see it in terms of private schools, or even private kindergarten, private primary schools, up to private universities. So the private sector can contribute in that regard by being entrepreneurs. The problem with that is that most people that go into education these days hardly see it as a social issue. They see it more as a place to make money. And if you have that mindset, it destroys the whole essence of building education or positioning education for cultural change. So for me, I think as much as we have a lot of private sector actors going into education, their intention and motivations need to be questioned. So, but if they're going into it and they see it as a social business and one that is there to contribute to social change, to culture building, then that's perfect. That's, on one hand, what businesses can do in terms of entrepreneurs. But businesses can also provide funding on the other hand. So, and I know a lot of companies in Nigeria that are involved in corporate social responsibility, and education is basically one of the top priorities they have. So, but it would be nice to see how much that can be tied to significant impact. So it's not just about getting involved in CSR and throwing money at problems, but also making sure that such investments are producing the kind of impacts we would like to see. And the other thing I want to mention very quickly is that many companies tend to go about it individually. It should be nice for us to come together. It would be nice to see these companies come together and collaborate and pursue collective impact. I think that's where the main challenge is. And if we're able to go beyond what we see in investment in education from an individual company's perspective and begin to think about the collective impact, I think there is a significant room for the private sector to play in that space.
Now, for someone that has, I mean, you were born in Nigeria, you are a Nigerian, even though you don't live in Nigeria, and you have, you've watched things unfold here in Nigeria, and you are in the education system, and I believe you went to a public school. Now, what do you think is responsible for the collapse of public schools in the country? Because now we're seeing private sectors coming into education, and it's now a booming enterprise, just as you mentioned. So why are we having the public schools collapsing as it is, and what can be done to reverse this trend?
That's $1 million question, and if I got the answer, I'll become a millionaire overnight. So but if you ask me, what I would think is, one, we need to prioritize. I don't think education is celebrated enough. If I were in Nigeria, probably I wouldn't have gone into academia. And when I was in Nigeria, I was a consultant, and I needed to come out of Nigeria to become an academic. And that for me is a shame. I still long to go back and do something. But if I look at what my colleagues in Nigeria, in the academia, especially universities, the access they have to basic things, think about your research, your journals, for example. I get a lot of emails, people asking me to send them papers and so on and so forth. That in itself is a shame. So I think the education sector has to be celebrated. And in order to celebrate it, we also need to prioritize it. And prioritization here also means that it needs to be reflected in our national budget in a way that shows we are very serious and committed to it. We also need to find ways to make the sector attractive to brilliant scholars, brilliant students. You can imagine a situation in Nigeria where some of our first-class students are attracted to remain in the university, do their postgraduate studies, and continue to teach in university. But today, the universities can't compete with oil and gas companies. They can't compete with the telecoms companies. They can't compete with the financial services sector. So you find people who are genuinely interested in academia, but because they need to meet their needs, they need to find other places, alternatives. And that, for me, is a major brain drain for the education sector. And we need to really make it attractive. I think that's my key question. And to do that, it needs to be properly resourced. And to resources, we need to prioritize it.
All right, so education is on the concurrent list. How do we get the commitment of the states and local governments to the achievement of this aspiration?
Well, the question is, I mean, the people there, people who are maybe governors or leaders of the local government, or to what extent do they value education? You can't give what you don't have. And I think the people also, as Nigerians, we need to start holding them to account. And we can't continue to, education is very critical to democracy in itself. And that's why you find in some countries, education is free up to the age of 18 and thereafter. Because without good education, you can't thoroughly participate in democracy. So what I find happening in our own situation is that we don't pay much attention to our elected politicians and leaders, and they can take us for a ride. So they're not investing in education. One way is to start to hold them to account. Even if they're not making it a priority, people can decide to prioritize education. And if they don't invest enough in education, we vote them out. Unfortunately, we can't do that because the stomach infrastructure is still very prevalent. And people, I guess, would like to have something in their stomach before they start entertaining poetry as an intellectual idea.
Now, Prof, just a quick one before I let you go. Let's look at the curriculum of schools. I don't know what your perspective is on the kind of curriculum we operate in our schools. Generally not really focused on skills development. We're talking about human capital development. And then we have the issue of technical and vocational education, how much of investment we are given to this aspect.
There's always that tension about the purpose of education. So if I frame education as culture building, it should be holistic. If I frame education as just the production of skills for the industry, it raises a question again about, is it about the person, about developing the human person as one that flourishes in a sustainable society? Or are we just producing people for the industry? And if we are producing people for the industry, who should pay for it? Should it be the government or the beneficiaries, in this case, the industry actors? So for me, I would like to see a balance. And as Aristotle says, virtue lies in the middle. So it's about that balance. And in this case, if you're thinking of education, I would think of, I call it the 3H approach, where we train the hand, so thinking about your skills, but we also train the head, which is about the intellectual conversations you want people to have, but you also train the heart. And the heart is at the core of our humanity, where we're able to unleash emotions like kindness and good citizenship. So the three things, I guess, would need to be properly balanced in our curriculum. And we give people the breadth of education that then allows them to eventually specialize. So in the general system, you have the vocational training, but the vocational training doesn't start from kindergarten. So your primary school, your secondary school, you have that broad knowledge, broad awareness about human development in the true sense of it. Then if you're going to university, then you're able to choose whether you want to go to a technical school or one that is very much around the intellectual agenda.
Right. All right, Prof. Thank you so much. Well said there. Professor Kenneth Amechi is the Chair of Business Sustainable Development, University of Edinburgh. Thank you so much for your time on Business Morning.
Thank you.
All right. Afex Commodities Market Update is next after the break. Do stay with us. This is Business Morning.
Afex Commodities Market. Today, we will be looking at innovative financing options for productive youth engagement in agribusiness. The theme for this year's International Youth Day recognizes the importance of youths to the growing food systems across the world. A big question in Nigeria remains on how to activate increased youth participation in agribusiness. Michael Martins, Portfolio Manager at Afex, will be talking to us about this. But first, let's get an overview of trading activities in the week that ended August 2nd. Hey, Michael, what do we have there? Good morning.
Hi, Chimeze. Good morning. Thank you for having me once again. It's always lovely to be here. So just to take a quick overview of what happened in the commodities market over the past 1 week. If you look at the table in front of you, the total value of transactions traded on the exchange fell by 81.07% from 2.06 billion to close the trading week at 0.39 billion. The total number of contracts traded on the exchange also fell by 85.05% from around 126,000 contracts to close the trading week at just under 19,000 contracts. With the number of deals traded on the exchange, we saw a slight increase of 11.11% from 18 deals to 20 deals. The Afex Commodities Index, which is the ACI, also fell by 5.62% from 481.75 points to close the trading week at 454.70 points. The Afex Export Index also fell slightly by 0.21% from 173.71 points to close the trading week at 173.33 points. With regards to the volume of contracts traded on the exchange in the week under consideration, there was a general decline across board, with maize being the major culprit, falling from 125,000 contracts last week to close this trading week at just over 15,500 contracts. There was a general decrease across board with all the other commodities. With regards to price changes on the exchange, we generally saw red across board, with the biggest changes happening with sorghum falling by 23.81% to close the trading week at 20,340 naira per contract. And then second, we have maize, which fell by 4.92% to close the trading week at 22,000 naira per contract. Third, we have soybean, which fell by 3.33% to close the trading week at 34,983 naira per contract. And last, with regards to price changes for commodities, we have ginger, which fell by 1.07% to close the trading week at 126,000 naira per contract. And lastly, but certainly not least, we have the fair trade exchange traded commodity, which fell by 4.90%, losing 797 naira in the contract value to close the trading week at 15,400 naira per contract. And as always, if you want to know more about the commodities market, you can always go to our website, which is www.afexnigeria.com. And if you also want to get started trading commodities, whether or not that's fixed income contracts or spot contracts or even exchange traded contracts for that matter, you can always download our app, which is available on iOS and Android.
All right, Michael, thank you. We see that most of the commodities ended the week in the red, except for cocoa and sesame that closed flat. What does this price drop mean for the farmers and the buyers?
So you have to imagine that the commodity season is, largely drawn to a close. I mean, we are at the tail end of the commodity season. So a significant portion of these transactions are essentially being done by people who still have a bit of leftover inventory that they're trying to sell off before the start of the new commodity season. So I wouldn't say that there's any sort of significant effect for farmers, because it is the case that a lot of the farmers would have sold off a significant portion of if not all of their volume within the first 3 or 4 months of the commodity season. Most traders would also have exited their positions in the market before this time. So I would say that there isn't that much of a significant effect on farmers and on our traders in the commodities market.
Now, how to create access to innovative financing options for young agripreneurs that can transform the food system remains important. First, how can we make agribusiness more attractive to youths and incentivize them to participate in it?
Thank you very much, Chimezia, for that question. And I think it's a very important question too, because we do need a lot more young people involved in the agricultural ecosystem. But there's a big fundamental issue, and it's a big issue of perspective, right? So the first thing we need to do is, first of all, expand the definition of what it means to be an agripreneur or to be an agricultural entrepreneur, right? If I were to ask you, Chimezia or Ladi, the first thing that would come to your mind if I mentioned the word agriculture, you would probably think in terms of the traditional cultivation or in terms of the traditional farming, right? That's not particularly wrong, but it's largely incomplete, right? Because the agricultural ecosystem is much larger than that, right? And there are a lot of other areas that by which where youths could essentially be playing, right? And this area is essentially cut across, from insurance, even to commodities trading, even to research and development, and then also maybe even data science, right? So the entire commodities ecosystem, right, is much larger than what it is often traditionally defined as. I mean, look for somebody like me as an example. I've been in the agricultural space for the better part of a year and a half, and I don't have a hoe, I don't have a cutlass, and I don't have a farm. I mean, that says a lot, right? So it does say that, a lot more youths could be involved, in the agricultural space if indeed they knew that, the agricultural space was much broader and much larger than just the traditional idea of going to the farm with your hoe and cutlass and then cultivating a certain number of crops for a given period of time. So I think that's the fundamental issue that we need to address.
Okay, but what are the various opportunities along the agribusiness value chain that young people can actually leverage on?
So when you think about the commodities value chain, there are a couple of pain points that you can essentially talk about. So with regards to pre-production, the major activity that youth could essentially get involved with would essentially be, research and development. And that's with regards to us finding improved seedlings and then getting better seedlings so that we can essentially increase the productivity of the average smallholder farmer, right? And it is also the case that when you get youths involved in research and development, they can come up with a differentiated way of cultivating, and then also finding, of course, improved seedlings, and then also for fertilizers. With regards to production, there are a lot of innovation that youth could essentially bring into play, right? So think about something that is currently being done in first world countries in terms of urban farming, where it's not uncommon for you to find people growing crops on top of their houses in Ikoyi or Lekki. I mean, it wouldn't be completely out of the question. So it is the case that if youth were to get involved in that particular value chain, they would also be bringing their knowledge about the best agronomy practice into play. They could also help improve cultivation and then productivity in regards to mechanization, and then maybe even also creating our own machines and equipment, right? So with regards to storage, so we currently have the brick and mortar system, which is sort of run by most storage facilities. But it is the case that when youths get involved, we can begin to think of innovative alternatives, to just storage, and then maybe we can even essentially start transporting goods directly from farm to where they're essentially needed. So with regards to commodities trading itself, which is essentially something that happens post-harvest and storage, so youths could essentially go into trading either the physical commodity in the open market themselves, or either even trading the financial market products that we essentially have on the exchange or other platforms, to sort of take advantage of, trading commodities, because as we have said over the course of this show many times, commodity prices tend to move significantly over the course of an entire commodity season. With the last part of the value chains, which would essentially be logistics and delivery, a lot of the youths could partake in export trade. They could also partake in, international shipping, and then setting up their own, transport and, logistics agencies and whatnot. So those are essentially, by and large, different areas where youths can essentially play across the agricultural value chain.
Now, what are the financing options available to young agripreneurs to scale?
So with agricultural entrepreneurs, and with essentially financing, there's one thing that sort of is concupiscent with financing, and that's essentially risk, right? So when it comes to financing small and medium-scale entrepreneurs, or even large-scale entrepreneurs for that matter, the first thing for us to do would essentially be for us to de-risk investing in agriculture. And of course, for the agripreneur, the first thing would be for you to actually start, because if you don't start, then you don't have an historical, you don't have a past to scale, you can't show people that you essentially can't do what you claim to be able to do. With regards to financing too, it's also important for them to be able to get startup capital. And when it comes to startup capital, you're essentially going to get money from 3 different people, and those are your friends, your families, and maybe even your foes, right? Those are essentially the people that will give you money at the outset in order to start your business. And when your company or when your business does grow to a certain extent, then you can then start looking for other alternative financing in terms of venture capital that is available to small and medium scale entrepreneurs. You can also take advantage of the fact that there are private companies who are also looking to fund small and medium scale entrepreneurs. We currently at Afex Commodities Exchange have the ASP, the Agri Service Provider Program, where we sort of provide small and medium scale young entrepreneurs, right, with inputs to sort of replicate the things that we do in our own MP financing program with their own smallholder farmers. So so when you think about all of that, for the average smallholder farmer who is young, who is looking to take part in the agricultural space, I think it's important to know that there are a lot of financing options that are available to you at the moment.
But is Afex providing any platform for such financing?
So in terms of platform, the ASP program would be our primary platform for actually empowering young entrepreneurs. And what we essentially do is similar to what we do in our MP financing program, where we essentially extend loans, right, to smallholder farmers at the beginning of cultivation, so that they can essentially plant with improved quality seeds, and they can also plant with improved fertilizers. So what we do with our ASP program is that instead of us having to interface with like 1,000 different smallholder farmers, we essentially extend these loans to agripreneurs, which in this case would be the young agripreneur. We essentially extend that loan to him, and he then replicates the same activities and services with his own smallholder farmers. So those are essentially the financing options that are available to small and medium scale entrepreneurs at Afex Commodities Exchange.
All right, Michael, we'll have to leave it there, Michael. Thank you so much. I will take a moment now. Business Morning continues in a moment. And now to the market. Airtel Africa and MTN helped the bull sustain its dominance yesterday at the equities market. Let's hear more now from Anyete Edet. Hello, Anyete. How's it going?
Yeah, good morning, Ladi. Yeah, well, you mentioned 2 telecom giants, Airtel and MTN Nigeria. Well, that's for the equities market. But first, we're starting with the fixed income market. Because we've been dodging that market for some days now. Now, take a look at the trading at the FMDQ's exchange. There shows you that the transactions there, it was bullish, but of course not much of activity. Still just about some 16 deals carried out, and this comes as the average yield at the bond market contracted to 4 basis points, and that's to around 11.9%. But there you have it there. The highest there was the 18th of March 2036, which had about 5 deals worth about 1.5 billion naira. But if you move over to the Treasury bills market, no activity was recorded there. It was flattish in contrast to the previous day. And then, of course, flipping over to the open market operations at the CBN, no activity there. of course, still quiet there. We don't know what investors are doing. Maybe they're taking a pause, waiting out for a cue from the central bank. But of course, no activity, like I mentioned. Then moving over to the central bank special bills there, it was increased activity there. Number of deals, 20. Total number of deals there was 10.72. Now, let's move over to the stock market where, you know, like you rightly mentioned, we gained about 163 billion naira, which is added to the previous 30 billion naira recorded on Monday, the start of the trading month for August. Of course, the major drivers there were the two bellwether giants, the two bellwethers in the telecom sector, Airtel Africa in particular, which went up by 5.69%. And then, of course, MTN went up by 1.67%, or let's just call it about 1.8%. Of course, don't forget that MTN had it released very stellar performance in its financial year results for the second quarter, which it made about 141 billion naira in profit after tax. So that means that investors are still going into the telecom sector. But when you take a look at the performance across all the sectors of key sectors of the market, it was red. That's the second day in the month within this week that sectoral performance has been in the red. Much of profit taking there, you know, and then of course the market, the market's breadth was also negative. We had about 26 losers there against 12 gainers. What just shows you that the market, well, it's just been lifted by these two telecom giants. And of course, we would have asked, we would have liked our stock market analysts to tell us what's going on, particularly in the telecom sector. Why are investors' interest going into those two bellwether stocks? Now, the total volume of transactions carried out yesterday, it had reduced. It reduced to about 5.3%. But year to date, we have an increase in the month-to-date gain at the market, 1.0%, and then of course the losses that we've recorded since the start of the year has been reduced to about 3.7%. So, but let's go back to the fixed income market, which we started with, and to tell us more about what happened at the fixed income market, let's speak with Chioma Udu, who is a fixed income trader at GT Bank. Thank you for joining us, Chioma.
Thank you for having me. Good morning.
Yes. So, can you tell us what's been happening at the fixed income market, in particular the treasury bills market and the OMO, the open markets operations? It was no activity there. So, what is anything scaring investors in that from that market?
Okay, I'll start with the OMO market, OMO calls. There's been no activity in that space because the allocation from the CBN has been very minimal. So the volumes that are allowable to trade for maturities issued in that space are not up to capacity. So that's why we've been seeing dwindling rates and trading profile in that space. But the T-bill market is still very quiet. There's little or no activity in that space. We just see retail customers scrambling for the available NCB we have. Currently, the 1 year is currently trading at the range of 7.5 to 8%. Moving to the bonds, it's a quiet but bearishness across the mid and long tenors. Clients are not ready to buy bonds now, so we've seen bearish sentiment in that space at the long end of the curve in the bond space.
Okay, so now today is Wednesday. I think there's normally this primary market auction. So what are we to expect? And then, of course, going into Thursday, is there going to be any, do you expect to see any activity or maybe a rebound or something to drive investors' interest?
So the liquidity we see in the market, we expect that CBN will come in to try and mop up some liquidity. We opened at about 120 billion up. We expect an OMO auction, but the volumes may be about 20 billion across three tenors. The short end of curve, we expect bullish sentiment as for the bonds. We expect bullish sentiment as customers or investors try to reinvest their maturities from the July maturity. But, well, basically, the market is going to be very quiet in the fixed income space. Also today, we don't expect any primary options, both from the CDOs and the bond space.
Okay, so thank you, Choma, for that, for giving us much information on the fixed income markets, and we'll keep our eyes out for how activities pan out there. So that was Choma Udu, fixed income dealer at GT Bank. So now, well, I think I can still spare a little bit of minutes or a few seconds to tell you about the unlisted securities market. It's still negative. Not much of activity there. It's been down. We had just about 10 trades there, 10 deals. Number of traded stocks, just 4, which is down by 20%. And then, of course, the number of deals is down by 68.75%. So, all right, that's it, Ladi.
All right, Nite. It seems nothing too interesting happening in that fixed income space. But let's see how the equities market closes today. Thanks, Anita.
Pleasure.
All right, we'll take another quick break. When we come back, we do an opening call to London. You're still watching Business Morning. Just stay with us.
All right, let's talk to Juliana in London. Good morning, Juliana. We're starting off with data this morning. The UK Services PMI is on focus today. Do you have a sneak peek into what it says?
Good morning, Chimsy. I do. The data's in, and it's not great. Even though the service activity in the UK has grown for the 5th consecutive month in a row, it's slowing. We are starting to see a slowdown. We saw this really triggered on Monday with the manufacturing data, but services is all important because, of course, it contributes 80% to British GDP. It's come in at 59.6 in July. This is better than the flash estimate last week of about 57.1. But it's still way short of that 62.4 figure we saw in the month of June. So it does indicate, this PMI data that we've received recently, that perhaps the economic recovery in Q3 for Britain may not be as strong as what we saw in Q2. And that's significant because, of course, we are still way below our pre-pandemic levels in terms of GDP size. The IMF did recently say that they expect 7% growth this year. But, of course, the data is what speaks for itself, and it's not great at the moment. Similarly to what we heard from manufacturers, service providers are still dealing with backlog. Pandemic chaos is still causing much concern, and staff shortages. Now, we have spoken on this show about labour market shortages here in the UK, specialised chefs and other areas. Now, because of that shortage, labour costs are increasing because, of course, you can't get anyone. You're going to pay more to retain your staff. So we are starting to see that. But most importantly, obviously, 50 is that benchmark figure. Anything above 50 does show expansion. So, 59 is still good, but not as good as what we'd seen in previous months.
And upmarket sportswear brand Sweaty Betty has been bought by US-based Wolverine Worldwide for almost £300 million. Could you give us more insight into this deal?
Yeah, this is being celebrated in the British media. Sweaty Betty was founded about 20 years ago by a husband and wife who living in upmarket, trendy Notting Hill. They've had loads of big celebrity names endorse their products, including most recently the Hollywood A-lister Halle Berry. I think she's got a partnership deal with them. They've seen robust sales over the past couple of years, particularly during the pandemic, because, of course, most people have been working from home, and athleisure, that category of fashion has been doing very, very well. Though obviously you've got to have a little bit of money in your back pocket if you want to buy from Sweaty Betty. Their leggings cost between about £85 to £100, considering you can buy leggings for about £4.99. They're obviously doing very well for themselves. They've got about 60 stores across America and Asia, and as well here in the UK. But particularly in America, they're doing very, very well. They they have concessions in 99 Nordstrom stores, which is probably the reason why Wolverine have snapped them up. According to Companies House, the latest information we have shows that in 2019, pre-pandemic, they made a turnover of £80 million. This was up from 63 million the year earlier. And in January, they said their sales have increased by 40%. So they're doing very, very well. And now they've had a great takeover.
All right, Juliana, we'll get more updates from you later in the day. Okay, let's look at the crypto market now. Ladi, what's going on there?
Well, we might have like sweaty traders, interestingly, in the crypto market, because Bitcoin is way below that 40K range at this point. It's all red in the market. Ethereum, but it's all about Ethereum today, funny enough. They have this upgrade coming to the Ethereum network that's going to be happening today. Look at market cap, $1.55 trillion. It's down about 0.83% this morning. 24-hour volume, $70.05 billion traded in the total crypto market. Bitcoin dominance still ranging in the 40s region. And price of Bitcoin, $37,866 this morning. It's down about 1.53% since falling from that 40K region. 24-hour volume, $23.95 billion traded. Looking at the one-day chart now, look at the Bollinger Band there. You see it's on the middle moving average at this point. The price is looking to settle around there, and we might see a bounce possibly on the one-day chart, but we have the MACD there. MACD is looking like it wants to cross. Volume is sapping out, and the RSI is not yet at oversold region yet, but still not looking so bad. Price of Ethereum, $2,488. Some traders might be expecting some kind of price rally because of the hard fork coming today for Ethereum. 24-hour volume, $19.59 billion traded in Ethereum this morning. Look at the top odds by market cap. We have BNB there, Binance Coin, up 0.10% at $322. Binance still getting a lot of regulation bites in the market at this point. Some countries are looking at pushing Binance out of their countries for now, but Binance CEO has said that Binance is ready to be regulated, but we see the price there, $322. Cardano, $1.34, up by 4%. Cardano is the biggest gainer in the top alts by market cap. Let's bring in Rume Ofi now, digital market analyst. Hello, Rume.
Hello, Larry. Good morning.
Good morning, Rume. Great to have you. Well, it's all about the Ethereum fork today. Tell us about this upgrade and what it possibly means for the Ethereum network.
Okay, the Ethereum is the powerhouse, so to say, ecosystem for decentralized finance and all of the technology, and also is the biggest cryptocurrency. What is going on is an upgrade, and it's called EIP 1559, which is Ethereum Improvement Proposal. When this is implemented, it's going to be implemented to be August 4th, which at about 13 to 17 Central Time. When it's been implemented, on the blockchain, there's something called on-chain. For example, if you want to do a particular project, or maybe an app or a smart contract, you have to access the Ethereum VM, which is a Ethereum virtual machine. So there are certain fees that you pay. But with this, when implemented, there's going to be a unified fee to pay, a minimum fee, which doesn't go well to the miners, because miners gain a lot of profit from all of the mining process, right? But with this, there's going to be a minimum fee, which is going to be very, very little, and all of those charges are going to go to a particular wallet on the Ethereum network, and it will be borne, which is going to be a deflationary effect on the Ethereum. So Ethereum is going to help to reduce the amount of Ethereum in circulation, which is going to improve price. But it is not a good thing for miners anyway.
Okay, but what do you think will happen to the price? Pump or dump?
Yeah, the effect of this on the long term is going to be that there's going to be a reduced amount of Ethereum. So when transactions goes on the Ethereum blockchain, and those fees that originally supposed to go to be rewarded to the miners are going to the network, and they are being born in the process. There's going to be scarcity to the value of Ethereum in circulation, and
so that will make Ethereum deflationary.
And when this kind of thing happens, price is going to really go up.
Right.
I think Ethereum at least did twice a bit in movement to Bitcoin. I'm not saying Ethereum is going to hit a $50,000 soon, but at least twice the step of Bitcoin.
Okay. All right. Roommate, thank you so much. All right, Jimmy, there you have it. Ethereum is now going to become a deflationary token with this upgrade coming up. So,
another question there is, what impact would that also have on other altcoins? I mean, like your SRP
because
and
Ethereum
ZRX
is the king of the altcoins. So anything good happens for Ethereum, it should rub off on the altcoins.
All right, we'll see how that goes as we continue to monitor the market. Okay, that's it on the program. Thank you for watching. I'm Chimizi Obi Iwago.
And I'm Ladi Williams. Thank you for watching. Remember to join us at 1:30 for Business Incorporated for more updates on business. Thank you so much for watching.